Sam, one of the things that surprised me initially when I read the L.R.N. report, but upon greater reflection, perhaps was less surprising, were some of the reasons cited that lower level employees came to believe management was not serious about ethical values. For instance, the lower level employees did not say, our company believes in engaging in bribery and corruption. Lower level employees did not say, we think our senior management is stealing money from the corporation or playing their stock options unfairly. Some big picture, either criminal actions, crimes, or actions that everyone would agree are not only wrong, but that management's not engaging in them. It's things, they mentioned things like that top level salesman, is he treated differently for cheating on his expense account than someone in a smaller office outside the United States? Is there a lack of transparency in the discretionary bonus system? Do we know what goes into that decision? Is there at least a formula we can look at? Or I'm on the front lines and no one asked me about our policy on X, Y, and Z. I'm the one that has to, if not implement it, I have to live by it. And there's no engagement with me. Why are those sort of routine, I don't want to say small issues, but they're not senior management's engaging in fraud. They're playing their stock options to get 100% on the dollar. Why is it that those smaller issues have come to the fore? And how does the culture audit really help a company understand literally into the weeds?
So little things make a big difference, Tom. And let's say you and I are in business together. We're running a multi-million-dollar company, and I'm in charge of the outside, and I deal with sales and things of that nature, and you take care of administrative and the accounting functions all report to you, so you're managing the money. Now, let's say that we go out to dinner, and at dinner, I don't know, there's a little plate on the table, or there's something there that you go, oh, I really like this, and you slip it in your pocket. It's not a big deal. It's just a little something. Now I'm wondering, if you're willing to take that little something, what else are you willing to take? If you're willing to cheat them, who else are you willing to cheat? Are you now I got to watch my back because I really don't know what's going on. And it's the same thing in an organization. If I treat Ernie differently than I treat Tara, then and in a better way, then Tara's going to wonder, where else am I coming up short? And so it's not that leadership is stealing millions and millions of dollars, but if they just treat a person differently, then you're putting other people on guard, and now they're wondering what else. A good friend of mine, Pat Hickman, former CEO and president of Happy State Bank, he told me something once and it really stuck. And I think this is really bottom line advice, and it's sage. And we have children, and when you have children, we always tell our children, because they'll complain about something and they'll go, that isn't fair. And so what do we tell our children? We say, Johnny, life isn't fair. But inside these four walls, within this organization, it had better be fair. And so the number one sales producer gets treated the same way as the number 50 sales producer. And if you're not happy with the production of someone and you don't feel like they're performing, then do something about it. Train them or allow them to go someplace else. But if your number one sales producer isn't living the values and you let that person stay, those aren't your values. And as soon as you create an environment where there's bias, where there's differentiation, then people don't feel safe. And when they don't feel safe, then there's distrust. And when there's distrust, then they're worried about what's happening at all levels above them.
Let's see, move our slides forward. So what are some of the necessary actions that a company can do to fine tune, Sam? We've talked about some big picture issues. What about if you feel like, and the culture audit or other assessment shows you have a pretty good culture. How can you move from pretty good to great, or how can you fine tune?
Once you start talking about values and culture, you can never stop. And this is not an initiative for this year. This is not this year's project. You don't want to be in a situation where leadership's got bug and this is what they want to focus on this year. No, you should never stop talking about your values. You never stop connecting your decisions to your values. You never stop talking about culture. And no matter how good your culture is, you can make it better, because if you aren't working to get better, then you have what we call culture drift, which means you were in a bullseye, but now you're kind of not where you were. Maybe you made an acquisition and maybe you didn't take all the steps you needed to bring on the new organization. We had a client once that they had 8,000 employees. They acquired a company with 8,500 employees and the cultures didn't match. And they had a huge situation with cultural drift, and it took 3 years to get it back on track. It's this constant focus. And I think it comes down to this. And one of the best example I've ever seen in action was the strategic plan by one of the companies that we did a lot of research with. And on their strategic plan, they had 9 items on their annual strategic plan. And the item number 1 was protect and defend the culture. And when your belief is that your culture is the key to your success and you make it a priority, then every decision you make, you're going to, in your mind, consciously or subconsciously, be thinking about, how does this connect back to the culture? How does it impact our culture? Does it add to it or erode from it? And when you're thinking that way, that's how you keep moving up. That's how you go from being poor to being good, from good to being better, from better to being really great, to being excellent. But it's no matter where you are, if you don't stay with it, you will erode and you'll drift off.
So, Sam, I wanted to end with maybe asking you about key insights from the culture audit, and a question that I want to pose before I open it up to our audience is that I started this webinar by saying something along the lines of, culture is what you do when no one's watching, and culture and values. And I wanted to maybe ask you if you thought that was a fair statement, you would rephrase that in some way, or what are your thoughts when you hear something like a Trump executive order that says we're not going to enforce a law around preventing bribery and corruption? What does that mean to you on the importance of corporate culture, and sort of get your final thoughts?
First of all, as a leader of an organization, if I need a law saying that I need to act ethically, treat my people properly, handle ourselves at the highest of character, then I've got a problem. And so part of me says all that stuff doesn't make a difference. That we need to know what's right and we need to do what's right. And if you believe that bribing someone is okay, that's an issue. Whether it's against the law or not against the law, it's an issue. Because as soon as you give a bribe to somebody, there's multiple things that come into play. We don't need to go into the details. Everyone understands that's just not right. It erodes profitability. There's just wrong on multiple levels. But people tend to, this is business. This isn't personal, it's business. That statement's a crock anyway, because everything is personal. Any conversation between two people are personal. I want to run an organization that is based on the highest set of values and runs at the highest standard possible, because I want to attract people that are going to operate at the highest level possible. And I want to retain those people because I want to kill the competition, because I have the best people. I don't need a set of laws to tell me to do that. My belief is that I hope this just jolts leaders a little bit to help them understand that the responsibility rests on their shoulders to run an organization, to build a high-performance culture that values people, and to protect that culture. I once asked somebody who ran an amazing organization, had one of the best cultures I've ever experienced. I asked him, I said, do you have an ethics and compliance officer? And he shrugged his shoulders. Are you kidding? He goes, all of us. There was no single ethics and compliance officer. It wasn't a large company, but he built an organization where everybody was the ethics and compliance officer. And that's really what you want to do, because when you build that kind of work, when that's the standard, just imagine what you can accomplish. Do I agree with executive orders that are taking away the DOJ's ability to enforce the laws? No, I don't agree with that. But I would like to think that as a leader, we would want organizations operating on a higher standard. And for those that don't, I can't speak for them. But for those that do, we can be there and help them do that.
Sam, I wanted to maybe end the formal part of our presentation here by asking you just to go through the culture audit and some of the things that 15 different areas that the culture audit assesses, and then how that can be utilized on a go-forward basis.
The idea here is very simple. We want a very non-obtrusive tool. It takes maybe 10, 12 minutes for an employee to fill out, that's going to give us accurate data on what's going on in the organization, so the leader can either support what's working or bolster what maybe where there's a shortcoming. And so we look at ethics. We look at whether or not there's a set of values in place, or decisions being made that connect to the values. What's the level of focus in the organization? Are people focused? That will attribute to the bottom line. We look at clarity of mission, whether people feel valued, quality of decisions, trust, speed of implementation, communication, innovation, inclusivity, safety. There's just a whole host of things that any leader would want to know about. And when these show up and we see where we're strong and where we need help, then it makes it very simple to come up with an implementation plan and chart a course on how to get better. So for leaders that really want to build the best possible organization, create an environment that, as we started, that attracts the best people and retains those people, the culture audit is a tool, a simple tool that allows them to do that, because we have the data, a deep dive in data that we need to be able to figure out what to do next.
Sam, we're at the end of our time for our formal presentation. We've had a couple of questions come in that I wanted to pose to you. The first one is around middle leadership or middle managers, whatever that phrase might be, and how can you really help that level of your organization improve their listen up and be able to communicate the values of the organization to the employees who do raise their hand, speak up, or even go into their middle manager's office?
That's a great question, Todd. We've created a framework, a values discussion or conversation framework that allows middle-level leadership to do just that. A lot of times, mid-level leadership ends up in the position they're in because they were really good at what they were doing. So they were good on the line, and now they're a supervisor, or now they're mid-level leadership. And they haven't necessarily had the training and the skill sets of how to better communicate with people, how to set the example, how to be a better listener. What does accountability and culture really mean? And so that's really about, we see this all the time, and we work with companies all the time on developing that mid-level leadership, because not only are you developing them for the responsibility that they have now, you're developing them as part of your succession plan for the future, because it's always better to move someone up within an organization than have to go outside of an organization and bring someone in that doesn't even understand your culture. So the answer to the question is invest in those mid-level leaders, give them the skill sets, teach them how to better communicate with, how to better listen to their people, and how to have an ongoing conversation, because there are specific techniques on how to have ongoing conversations around the values and around what our culture is.
Sam, our next question is along those lines, except it's more directed at senior leadership. How do you have that direct conversation with senior leadership that there is a disconnect? Do you need to bring in sort of an independent outside third party? Can a HR or CCO type have that conversation? Because it could be a difficult conversation.
And yes, it can be a difficult conversation. So what we provide an organization, and I don't want this to come across as self-serving, but I want to position it as the angle that we take we come in as a fractional chief culture officer. And so we report to and we communicate directly with the CEO. So that is that independent third party. When an organization engages us, for instance, they're basically saying, hopefully they're saying, we want to know what you think. We want to know your perspective. They're also saying we want to be better, because when we take a client on, we evaluate whether or not they're in that position, the position of wanting to be better and having an open mind. And it goes back to where Ernie was before, perspective seeking. If leaderships at the senior level is perspective seeking, as I understand it, then they're going to be open to that conversation and they're going to listen to it. And it comes easier from someone like us that is independent versus someone else within the organization. And so if we can help, or some other third party can help a leader better understand how they receive and send information, how they communicate, what the communication styles are of the other people within the organization, what's the best way to have conversations around values, then we see that progress. It all starts at the top. And I know this, Tom, but when senior leadership is all in and they're willing to say, you know what? I'm not perfect. I'm trying hard, but I can be better. Help me be better so we have a better organization. Help me be better so I can be better for my people. When that kind of person shows up, we embrace them because they're going to move mountains. And as a third party advocate, we're going to help them move those mountains.
Sam, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this event. I wanted to thank everyone who attended. I really feel like this is perhaps one of the most important webinars we've had. I hope that everyone will take this message and really take a deep dive, look at their culture, and have the opportunity to improve it in this time of nothing other than great chaos, even in the business world. So, any final thoughts from you, Sam?
Just that I appreciate that people show up, and I appreciate all the people that always come back and listen to the recording. That this is an important topic, and it's one that we can do something about. And so we just need to take steps, build strong culture, demand a strong set of values, not only for ourselves as individuals, for our organizations, and for our community as well. And when we do that, we create a better place to live, a better place to work.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of our time. So thank you so much for attending. Sam and I will be back next month. I'm not quite sure what our topic will be given what's going on in the business world today, but I'm sure we'll have something that will interest everyone.
Things change day to day. Thank you.
I asked Tara to stick around for a moment.
And I stuck.
Okay.
All right, and we can cut off the recording.
Yeah,
Hold on,
you can cut off if you want to do that.